Thanks, Ian. Deeply honored. Let me echo Dan's thanks. Thank Lynn and all the folks at Dan thanked. Save a minute or two. I'd like to start off with a word of caution. Right? The Lyndon Baines Johnson government did not think that it was going to get involved in a big counterinsurgency campaign. The George W. Bush administration certainly didn't think it was going to get involved in two big counterinsurgency campaigns. No American government ever thinks it's going to get involved in a big counterinsurgency campaign, but they have a disturbing habit of doing so. Steve and I were at the LBJ school late last week, and I'm reminded, and I apologize for the minor obscenity, but it is LBJ. An LBJ quote, Lyndon Johnson said, "The woman I love is the Great Society, but this bitch of a war in Vietnam keeps pulling me back." And I would suggest that the Obama administration would really, really like to pivot toward Asia. That's the woman they love. But this bitch of the Middle East keeps pulling them back and is likely to continue to do so. And as we sagely nod and say we're never going to get involved in any of these kind of interventions again, I would just point to the continuing drumbeat and deepening drumbeat toward intervention in Syria. And obviously that couldn't possibly go wrong. So the idea that administrations have learned and that they're going to make smart foreign policy decisions and that we're never going to need this again, wouldn't it be pretty to think so? As a result, I think we have to retain the hard relearned lessons of counterinsurgency in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Here I would say that there is some good news. The recently leaked Joint Staff study has a number of very, very smart lessons learned, many at the strategic level, problems both with the civilian administration and arguably with two civilian administrations, but also certainly inside the Department of Defense, with the application of strategy, with the ability to recognize things going awry, with the ability to rapidly adapt when things do. It's interesting to contrast that study with the BDM study of Vietnam. After Vietnam, we contracted out the lessons learned process. This time, the Joint Staff did it themselves. And I think that by itself increases the chances that some of those lessons are going to stick. And from what I've seen in press reports of that study, it looks to me like they got an awful lot of the answers right. In particular, if there is one lesson that I think that we don't have right yet, it's combat advisors. The ability to help conduct security force assistance on the ground. Very soon going to be the most important thing we're doing in Afghanistan, certainly for conventional forces. Conventional ground forces, the Air Force and Special Forces are obviously going to continue to have very important roles there. I was at Fort Bliss last week talking with some of the folks we're sending over for that mission. We're doing better than we were when I was training them myself at Fort Riley, Kansas, 06 to 08, but perhaps not quite good enough yet. And as the Army flails to find a post-Afghanistan mission, press reports today that countering WMD is going to be that mission. I would encourage the Army to think hard, real hard, about security forces assistance as its post-Afghanistan mission to man exceed supply and will continue to. Finally, one question Seyom asked us to think about. There's been an extraordinary failure to build civilian capacity despite the results of the intellectually coherent but politically extremely poorly timed Quadrennial Diplomacy and Development Review, or QDDR, which made a compelling case to me, unfortunately not to the House of Representatives, for deeper investments in civilian capacity. And what that means is, obviously we're never going to do anything like this again, because no administration would ever get us involved in something that would go this direction again. But if it were to do so, it would be Department of Defense that would again have to pick up the responsibility for an awful lot of civilian